Welcome, everybody, to the Sheridan Report, brought to you by BetNow.eu. Make sure you go to BetNow.eu. Check out all their games. They got a baseball game where you pick the games every week with everybody else. Top 5 get consolation prizes. Number 1 can win up to $5,000. Make sure you go to BetNow.eu, and you go there. You put in the promo code TRUTH, TRUTH 50, to get a 50% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. Also, you can go to thegrizzlytruth.com, click on the betnow.eu banner at the top of thegrizzlytruth.com, put in a promo code TRUTH50 to get that 50% bonus. All right, I am your co-host for the Sheridan Report, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in from the Sheridan Report, Bobby Sheridan. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm doing great this morning, Mike, and I'm really excited about our new sponsor and betnow.eu. I'm excited to check them out, and I understand they do a game on their, like a pick'em type game.
You pick the games straight up every week, and first place can win up to $5,000, and then they've got the top 5 consolation. We'll get consolation prizes also. The amount there depends on how many people played that game that week. So I would definitely check that out if you got a chance to.
Sounds good, Mike. Well, hey, you know what? I'm really happy with baseball. You know, we bounced back with a good night last night. We came within an eyelash of sweeping our 3 straight plays. I don't know, you were probably sleeping, but that Giants game ended crazy last night.
I ain't ever sleeping, Bobby. Come on.
I know you're up late, Mike, but this one, it didn't end until West Coast, probably 10:30 or 11 or something like that. So
yeah, I'm definitely awake at 1:30 or 2. Hell, I think I was talking to you on the phone at like 1.
Possibly, yes, I think it was. But anyhow, we came within an eyelash of sweeping all 3 of our straight plays, and I felt real good about that. And you know, it's interesting. We had our 3 mix and match 3-teamer last night was a little bit chalky, and there was only paid like $317 for 100. And I thought, well, you know what? This is solid. Let's get back going with this one. And they wound up losing 2 out of 3. So you just don't know on those things. But I think we got a real good one tonight. And I love our straight plays again. And just baseball's got some consistency now. And we've won 7 of our last 8 days. So I'm feeling good about that, Mike, and ready to give the listeners a couple for tonight.
Well, give them to us.
All right. Well, here we go. You know, Mike, I want to ask you a question, and this is nothing that I've prefaced you with, so this is just right off. You're just like the listeners right here.
I hope this is before 1990 if it's baseball, but go ahead.
It's right now baseball. And in the National League, Mike, I think everyone would know, most fans that follow it all would know that the LA Dodgers have the best run differential in the National League at plus 127. They've outscored their opponent by 127 runs over their 76 games, all right? Mike, who would be number 2 in the National League best run differential? Just off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, let's see. Off the top of my head, I just said the Houston Astros, but they're in the American League now, but I want to preface this by saying before 1990.
You're right.
Number 2. I don't know, the Rockies.
Well, number 2.
Or
all right, well, number 2, right. Well, number 2 is the Cubs at plus 66.
That was my third guess.
But when we get to 3, you're at the Cincinnati Reds, Mike. The Cincinnati Reds and the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks are tied at a plus 47. Now, how about that?
The thing that's amazing about that, Bobby, is this. Up until about the last 2 weeks, they weren't hitting the ball to save their lives. But the one good thing the Reds had been doing, because it's after 1990, but I do pay attention to the Reds because that's my team. Their starting pitching has been great. I don't think they've got a starting pitcher over a 4 ERA, do they?
Well, or maybe just barely in the 4s, which from the old days is 3. You know, you just add about.
Yeah, the old days of 4 will get you into minor leagues. Today, it might make the All-Star team.
Hey, so anyhow, point is, Mike, that Cincinnati is starting to play some good baseball right now, and you know, when teams fall behind the 8 ball, win-loss wise, especially teams that expect to be there. Okay, the first goal is to get to 500. And the Reds are on a 5-game winning streak now, which has put them at 35-38. So they're chasing that 500 mark. They're only 5.5 games behind in that division. This is a division to watch closely because you got 4 teams, the Cubs, Brewers, who have come back to the pack a bit, St. Louis, who's never really found their stride yet, and Cincinnati are 4 teams within 5.5 games of each other. And that's going to be a real good battle as we head down towards the All-Star break and then after the All-Star break. So with that said, Mike, we're on the Reds again today as our top play. Let me give you the updated line on that. You can still get plus $1.09 with Sonny Gray, who's already beaten Milwaukee this year. The Reds are coming off of a very good performance yesterday at Milwaukee, where we had them as our top play. We're going to come right back, Mike, and see if we can win again in this series. The Reds plus 109 behind Sonny Gray and that good bullpen and that good run differential. I think Cincinnati's going to take another game tonight in that series, so I like them a lot, Mike. That's my top play. Now, there's another game close to qualifying for top play status. I could have made this a twin top play, but I didn't, but it could have. So you can maybe treat it as that, and that's the San Diego Padres tonight. The Padres coming off a 4-game sweep of the Brewers, and, you know, it's tough to sweep any series, but they played very good, solid when they needed to. You know, the Padres had fallen behind the 500 mark. They've been playing ahead of the 500 mark all year and going the other direction, but they got that sweep came just when they needed it. And I like playing teams that hit the road off of good, solid homestands. I like playing them that first game right out of the box. And that's San Diego tonight. And it just so happens they got left-hander Eric Lauer going against Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, their offense has been pretty solid through this drought, but their pitching has let them down, the starting pitching. And I think we can definitely own the starting pitching matchup tonight with Lauer over Musgrove. And the left-hander against Pittsburgh is the matchup I want. And with the day off yesterday to rest their bullpen, they should be in good shape, Mike, to take game 1 of this series. So I like the Padres over the Brewers, and that current line is kind of like the Reds, real small dog, plus 103 on the road. So that would be a straight play on each and a parlay. Boom, boom, boom. I think that Padres and Reds would be a nice play. And then the last straight play of the night, Mike, is Colorado, plus 173. They're at the Dodgers, and this is a good pitching matchup. Marquez and Buehler, a pair of good, solid right-handers. I think this is a coin flip game in my mind. Now, I know the Dodgers are favored, okay? But in my mind, this is going to be a tough, even one-run game going into late innings. I think it could go either way. The Dodgers are right off of the Giant series where they've used their bullpen quite a lot the last 2 games. Yesterday wasn't supposed to be, 2 days ago wasn't supposed to be when they threw Rich Hill, but he got hurt early and came out. So they've had 2 straight games of using their bullpen quite a bit. So, the Rockies, the Dodgers are going to need Buehler to go 8 tonight, go 7 strong and hand it off. But it's not always easy to do that. And the Rockies are missing their shortstop tonight, Trevor Story, but this is all about Marquez. So I like the Rockies with that number at plus 173. And there's your straight plays. Now, here's your 3 mix and match. And one of them's off the board. We got the Cubs already off the board, and they have a 2-1 lead early in that game against the Mets. But the other 2 available are the Yankees and Twins. I just think these are solid plays you can mix and match with. The Yankees aren't a crazy favorite, only $1.59 with Paxton. Okay, over this because they're playing the Astros, but the Yankees are riding a hot streak right now, 6 in a row. I think they can make it 7. And then the other one I mentioned was the Twins, and the Twins are coming off. They've lost for the first time 3 out of 4 out of 5, and they're looking for a big start out of Martin Perez, who was their ace early on, like maybe through the first 50 games. And I think he has a chance to reestablish himself tonight. This would be a big win for them against the surging Royals, who have won 4 out of 5. And we alluded to that a couple games ago when we were on them a couple times. I just think tonight with Minnesota going to Kansas City, this is a great spot for them to win the ball game. So I like Perez minus 165, road favorite at Kansas City. And there's your baseball, Mike.
All right, Bobby. And we're going to do something a little new starting today. We're going to start looking at the CFL game for today. And last night there was a great 44-41 game between Saskatchewan and Ottawa. Tonight we have a really intriguing matchup. We have the BC Lions at the Edmonton Eskimos. And the Eskimos are set to welcome in their former franchise quarterback Mike Riley. And it's BC Lions, the Commonwealth Stadium. And there is a ton of offensive talent on both these rosters. When we look at the line through BetNow.eu, you are getting 3 or you got if you got Edmonton, you're given 3. If you got the Lions, you're getting 3. Travis Harris is the guy now in Edmonton. Travis Harris is a guy that me and Steve Risley interviewed on Survive in Advance, I think back about November, December. So if you get a chance, check that out. He's a great guy. Just had a baby not too long ago. And Trevor Harris is a stud. He could start in the NFL. So could Mike Riley. This is going to be a great football game. Harris in his last game reminded everybody how good he can be. Broke the 400-yard passing mark, 3 touchdowns in their last week in their win against Montreal. Riley didn't have as good a start with the Lions. He threw for 324 and a touchdown against 2 interceptions. The one thing there is, it's very rare for him to throw more interceptions than touchdowns. I doubt that happens tonight. I think he's going to come up and play huge tonight. And my pick here, this is a West Division toss-up in the CFL between 2 teams that I think on paper are surefire playoff teams. The Lions will be ready to go, especially with Mike Riley coming back home. I think the difference in this game, though, for the Eskimos is C.J. Gable. If C.J. Gable is on, which he usually is when he's healthy, I think Edmonton wins this game in a high-scoring game. I like Edmonton. I'm going to give the 3 points. The over-under is 55. I would also go over on this over-under because I think there's going to be a lot of points scored tonight. I think the Eskimos win this game something like 41-34.
Oh wow, Mike, that's great prediction. I mean, that's way over the 55.
Yeah, I normally don't like doing that this early in the season, but the CFL, if you don't watch it, Bobby, they got forward motion guys. Everybody can be a motion forward. I think a lot of times in the CFL, especially when you got quarterbacks like Riley and Harris, who I think are legit NFL starters if they had the opportunity, I think they're going to be really hard to stop with that motion coming downhill. And tomorrow, let's do our show at 2 o'clock, Bobby, because we got a 4 o'clock Eastern start between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts. And right now, the Argonauts are getting 4 points as a home dog. So make sure you check us out tomorrow. And make sure you go to betnow.eu, get your bet in on the Lions and Eskimos tonight. Remember, give the 3 points, take the over. All right, Bobby, real quick, before we go on this day, we're going to check out a short commercial from our new sponsors, betnow.eu, where if you use the promo code TRUTH50, you get a 50% deposit or 50% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. We'll be back right after this. Make sure if you enjoy betting on baseball to go check out BetNow.eu's Grand Slam contest. A weekly winner will receive $5,000 in cash, and there will be 5 consolation prizes given out to the top 5 finishers. Make sure you go to betnow.eu and use the promo code TRUTH50 to get a 50% cashback bonus on your first deposit.
Hello, this is Roman Gabriel, and you are listening to The Grilling Truth.
All right, guys, we're back on the Sheridan Report, brought to you by betnow.eu. Remember, promo code TRUTH50 to get that bonus. All right, Bobby, what do we got for on this day?
On this day, Mike, we have a great boxing match again. We got Lennox Lewis retaining his WBC World Heavyweight Championship with an 8-round knockout over Mike Tyson.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here is this fight happened like 10 years late, but a lot of Mike Tyson fans will say, well, he was over the hill. People don't realize Lennox Lewis was actually older than Mike Tyson here. The only reason Mike Tyson fought older is because Mike Tyson never took care of himself. Lennox Lewis did. And Lennox Lewis was one of the most intelligent guys to be heavyweight champion. He proved that by retiring after one more fight. He got out while the getting was good, so to speak. But this fight was originally supposed to happen a couple months earlier. And on January 22nd, 2002, there was a press conference in New York City to officially announce the fight. Tyson was introduced first. He walked up on stage and then stared in the direction of where Lewis was supposed to appear. You can see this on YouTube, too, because it's crazy. And when Lewis came on stage, Tyson quickly walked towards him. Lewis had a bodyguard. Why Lennox Lewis needs a bodyguard, I have no idea. But he stepped between them and pushed Tyson back. Tyson quickly took a stance like he was going to throw a punch, and then he did. He threw a roundhouse left at the bodyguard that missed. Lewis raised his fist and threw a punch as dozens of boxing officials and members of both camps swarmed onto the stage. It was a mess. It looked like a baseball brawl where the pitcher and the batter could actually fight. And with all the pushing and shoving, both fighters go to the floor. While they were on the floor, Tyson, who suffered a cut on his forehead, bit Lewis's leg. And WBC President Jose Sulaiman was knocked unconscious in the melee, which is one of the good things that came from it, because somebody needed to knock his ass out. Because if you know the history of boxing, you know there's not too many more crooked boxing guys than Jose Sulaiman. On August 1st, 2002, after the fight, Sulaiman filed a $56 million lawsuit against Lewis and Tyson. Of course, that got thrown out. Now, the fight was supposed to be April 6th in Las Vegas, but the Nevada State Athletic Commission voted 4-1 to deny Tyson a license on January 29th. Several other states, including California, New York, Texas, also refused to give Tyson a license. Washington, D.C. and Detroit were in the running to host the fight, but Memphis landed the match with a promised $12.5 million site fee. They ended up fighting this at the Pyramid in Memphis. Both fighters were guaranteed $17.5 million. And if you remember, one of the reasons Vegas did not take lightly what Tyson did here, because they're not ones to turn down site fees and a bunch of money, was because, of course, in 1997, you had the ear-biting incident with Mike Tyson against Evander Holyfield. And so this was the second time, and I guess 2 strikes and you're out in Vegas on this one. They didn't want to risk anything crazy happening, and neither did the promoters of the fight, because the contracts actually addressed the possibility of the fight ending with a flagrant foul. The fighter that was to commit an infraction like that would forfeit $3 million of his purse to the other man. Tyson also was forced to agree to pay Lewis $335,000 for biting his leg during the brawl at the press conference that was announcing the fight. Payment had to be due by June 9th or the fight would not happen. I guess they paid it because the fight happened. Now,
Right.
the other thing that made this fight interesting is you had 2 different promotional companies, because Lewis was under contract with HBO, Tyson was under contract with Showtime, and the 2 networks first off saying they wouldn't do it. And I remember Jay Larkin said Tyson would fight on HBO when pork chops grow on the palm trees of Tel Aviv. The 2 networks eventually did agree to work together, though, and the pay-per-view commentators were Jim Lampley from HBO, Showtime's Bobby Ches. Each network had a team call the fight for a potential delayed broadcast, which they both paid for also. If Lewis won, HBO would televise the replay and pay Showtime $3 million. If Tyson won, Showtime would do the same thing with HBO. Now, the interesting thing about this is Michael Buffer and Jimmy Lennon Jr. shared announcer duties. So what you had is, you had Mike Tyson, the Showtime fighter, introduced by Jimmy Lennon, who's the Showtime announcer, or ring announcer, and then you had Michael Buffer introduce Mike Tyson. Lewis was only a 2-1 betting favorite, which we could have got rich off that, because that should have been like 8-1 or 9-1. And the interesting here is, before the fighters entered the ring, and I think that they did this in a weigh-in where they actually weighed each one in at different times so you wouldn't get another confrontation. And before the fighters entered the ring, I'll never forget watching the pay-per-view on this. A dozen yellow-shirted security guards formed a barrier from corner to corner all the way across the ring to keep them apart. The fighters received the instructions in the dressing room from the referee and didn't meet at the center of the ring even to touch gloves. That's how worried they were about this, about something blowing up here. And now, Lewis versus Tyson at the time ended up being the highest grossing pay-per-view event in history, and it generated like $107 million. That's a lot of money, a whole lot of money. It was surpassed. Well, it was surpassed by Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather in 2007, which did even more than that, and of course Pacquiao Mayweather, which did like $7 bazillion. Um, the ticket prices, I think ringside was like $2,500, but there was a lot of British fans because we've had some British people on our show before, where there was British fans that actually spent like $4 million on tickets. They were paying like 15, 20 grand to get a ticket. And the British, basically, you could have Paul Revere running through Memphis screaming the British are coming, because you had about 10,000 Brits show up for the fight because those people love their boxing. Because in Great Britain, or the UK as they call it, boxing is one of the top 3 sports, where in this country it's become more of a niche sports. Now, during the fight was just a one-sided ass whooping. And we come out, and Tyson comes out smoking in the first round like he used to. But Lennox isn't having that. Lennox is just too strong. He got that big jab. He sticks it in his face and just basically dominates the fight. And I think that in those 8 rounds, Tyson probably took more punishment in those 24 minutes that he did his entire career combined. I think Lewis actually went out of his way to hurt Tyson. I think he carried him for a while just to beat the hell out of him. And I know I really enjoyed watching the fight because I was never a real big fan of Mike Tyson. Now, when you look at the fight, the thing that is really amazing, and I don't know if this tells you how great a fighter Lennox Lewis was or how bad Mike Tyson was that night, but Lennox Lewis landed 53% of his jabs. Here's the killer, and this is why I think this is the biggest ass whooping Tyson ever took. If you combined all these ass whoopings together, is he landed 68% of his power punches. So power punch is a cross or a hook. He threw 103. He landed 84. He landed 60% of his punches for the entire fight. Mike Tyson, on the other hand, threw 200 punches through 8 rounds, landed 49 for a landing rate of 23%. Tyson would go on after this to continue. He fought and got beat by a guy by the name of Danny Williams at Freedom Hall. I think it was in 2003 or 4. And he ended up losing to Kevin McBride in his last fight. And McBride was a white guy that was absolutely terrible. And Tyson basically quit on the stool against him. Lewis went on to have one more fight. He fought Vitaly Klitschko. Vitaly Klitschko goes on to be in the conversation as one of the 10 greatest heavyweights. And they fought an absolute war. I think it was the last great heavyweight championship fight we've seen. Hopefully we'll get something in the near future that will resemble that. But when you look at that fight, it was an all-out war. And Klitschko was really giving it to Lewis. But Lewis, the old war horse he was, wouldn't tap out. He kept fighting. He landed a punch against Klitschko that split Klitschko's eye open. And the cut was so bad you could almost see it. You could almost see the inside of his forehead. It was so bad. And they ended up stopping the fight. And Lennox Lewis realized it was time to go. He retired. And then Vitaly Klitschko picked up the mantle for about the next decade as the best heavyweight in the world. And then after he retired, his brother Vladimir picked it up for the next 7 or 8 years. So Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, they called it Tyson Lewis is on. They were using the is and the on at the end of Tyson and Lewis because they thought they were being cute. But it was a mega promotion. It was a mega fight. But in the end, it was just a mismatch between a faded man who never took care of himself and a true warrior that always gave everything he had.
Wow, Mike. Now I have to ask you, did Lewis get the decision? What happens when he
No,
split?
it wasn't a decision. He knocked Tyson out in the 8th round. I mean, he beat Tyson.
No, I
death.
know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that, but I went ahead, Lewis and Klitschko.
Oh, no, he stopped Klitschko. They stopped the fight on the cut.
But, I mean, don't they go to the scorecards at that point or no?
No, because the cut was caused by a punch. He hit him with like a right hook over his right eye or left eye, and it split his eyebrow open. And Klitschko was a bad dude. Klitschko fought through it. And I think if they'd have let him continue, he would have fought till his eyeball fell out, and then he probably would have kicked it out of the way and kept going. But, yeah, the only time they go to the scorecards is if it is on a foul. So if it would have been a headbutt, since they were in the 6th round, they would have had to score the 6th round, and then they would have tallied what happened in those 6 rounds, and the winner would have been there. If it is caused by a punch, well, tough shit if you're the guy that got cut because
Right.
you just lost a fight if they stop it. And Klitschko raised hell about it, but it had to be stopped because he was bleeding profusely. I mean, big time. And if you want to
Wow.
see some blood in a fight tonight, you can go to the Facebook page for The Grueling Truth because at 9 o'clock tonight we'll be showing Gotti versus Ward 1, one of the great fights of all time. So make sure you go on and check that out. And I believe at 7 o'clock we got Roberto Duran, Wilfred Benitez. And at 10 o'clock we have Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad. So make sure you go to our Facebook page, give that a like, and definitely check out our sponsors, betnow.eu. Remember the promo code TRUTH50. And I highly recommend them from going on the site. They offer a lot of side games. They offer the wagering on the CFL, which we talked about today. And I can't wait till the NFL season, Bobby. We get a little NFL Pick'em show brought to you by betnow.eu. And we'll have some former NFL players on. We'll have, somebody like you maybe.
Well, Mike, I'm looking forward to that too, but we got a lot of money to make before that. So, one more thing I did have on your boxing comment. It's interesting. Lewis went one more fight, and he was still good. Tyson went 2 or 3 more, and he was awful by this point. Tyson should be very lucky, and Lewis for that matter too, that they could make this much money, $17.5 million, at the very, very end of their careers. I mean, that's just amazing to me. That
Yeah, but the
Tyson
thing
could
about
make that
this
much
is
money.
this. Lennox Lewis wasn't at the end of his career. Lennox Lewis didn't start to look old until the Klitschko fight. And the thing is then, I don't think he was in very good shape because the backstory there is the number one contender, I think, was Kirk Johnson. Kirk Johnson was from Canada. Lucas is from Canada, so those guys aren't that tough. I'm kidding, Lucas. But when you look at Kirk Johnson pulled out of the Klitschko, or pulled out of the Lewis fight about 2 weeks before it was to occur because he got injured. Now, Klitschko, being the next contender in line, normally Lennox Lewis, as the heavyweight champion, would have fought a dude nobody had ever heard of that was not a threat. Lennox Lewis agreed to fight the number one contender, Vitaly Klitschko, who he knew was really good. He hadn't had the greatest training camp because he thought he was fighting Kirk Johnson, so he wasn't really on top of his game. So he goes out there and he beats Vitaly Klitschko. He probably wasn't as well trained as he should have been. And hindsight is Vitaly Klitschko is at the very worst one of the top 15 heavyweight champions of all time, probably in the top 10. And Lewis, I think, knew that and still accepted that challenge. That's what made him so great. I think he knew from the bad camp that this was going to be his last fight. And if it was his last fight, it might as well be against Klitschko. And he may not have been completely ready. But Klitschko had been training for somebody else. He only had 2 weeks to get ready. This may have been his best chance to beat a young, hungry lion. But he could have stepped aside this fight, fought somebody else, retired. But I don't think that he wanted to hear questions 10 years later about why you didn't fight Vitaly Klitschko. And Lennox Lewis was a warrior. So he just went ahead. He fought Vitaly Klitschko. He answered those questions. There you go.
Yeah, they're very interesting. And anyhow, I thought that was, Tyson's probably, that's all the last money he probably got out of this whole deal was basically
well, he got
that
paid
money.
well his last few fights against Danny Williams and Kevin McBride. But, he was pissing his money away. The reason he had to take extra ass whippings is because he didn't take care of his body or his money.
Yeah.
And the thing is, in this fight, I think Lennox Lewis was 36. Mike Tyson was 35. So when people say, Lewis didn't beat the best Tyson probably the best Lewis was 2 or 3 years before that. Because actually, I think Lewis was probably at his best from age 33 to 36. But that's because he took care of himself. He matured as a fighter and he got smarter. Where Mike Tyson had so much other shit going on that it was just a big circus.
Right. Hey, I do want to mention this because it's Indiana hoops territory. I noticed today was a happy birthday for Derek Coleman, who turned 52 years old today. I couldn't believe 52.
Derek, thank you for missing those free throws.
That's right. Takes us back to the 87 championship game. He misses, and he doesn't call a timeout. They go down and hits a shot. So anyway, that's what I thought of today when I saw Derek Coleman turned 52, and I thought, gosh, is he 52? And then I added it up. Yeah, he's 52.
That makes sense because he was a couple years older than us.
Yep,
I have a harder time
right.
believing we're 50, Bobby.
Me too.
I know. I don't feel it, though, because I'm in the best shape of my life right now, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I'm having a hard time talking this long because I ran 3 miles before this, and I lifted weights for an hour before that, and my mouth's real dry.
You know what, Mike? I'm proud of you for that. I got to follow your lead there. I'm on the opposite end of that. I'm not in great shape. So
you were a baseball player, Bobby. Nobody expects you to be in great shape even when you're in your prime.
Oh, well, yeah. You know, not these guys now. These guys are football players playing baseball now, Mike.
I know.
It's ridiculous. But anyhow, good stuff, Mike. Thank you for the boxing. I appreciate that a lot. And CFL, I'll start checking that out a little bit too.
Yeah, and if you like the boxing, Inside Boxing Daily will be back tonight, and that is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation, Seat Giant, and of course BetNow.eu, where you can use the promo code TRUTH50 to get a 50% cashback bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. Make sure you check them out. Also, check out the Sheridan Report at Sheridan Report on Twitter, thesheridanreport.com on the internet. If you like to bet the ponies, make sure you check out THG. Halfway down on the right, the handicapping guide with Phil Rankin, who gives you all the best in picking them horses. He's got a computer system where he plugs it in. He gives you the top 7 horses in every race, or the top 4 horses in every race. And you can get that for just $5 a day, and you get multi-tracks. I think it's 4 or 5 tracks all the way around the country. So make sure you check them out there also. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up for now. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, and like 300 other places. Anywhere you find sports podcast, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.